Few months ago, I decided to take a break from everything. I was 31, recently out of a long relationship, and needed some peace. I drove out to the Cumberland Mountains, hoping to find inspiration in nature. I was a wildlife photographer, so I thought capturing photos of deer and birds would help me clear my mind. This wasn't my first time in the woods, so I figured I was prepared. But I was wrong. I set up my tent in a small clearing that first night. It was getting dark and the air was still. I felt uneasy but didn't want to admit it. I made a campfire and sat, listening to the sounds around me. It was quiet, too quiet. I shook my head trying to focus. I thought I heard something, but it was just the branches swaying. That night, around midnight, I heard rustling outside my tent. It was different from the sounds of deer. My heart began to race. I unzipped the tent slowly, holding my breath. The forest was so quiet. I peeked outside. Shadows danced between the tall pines, but nothing was there. Maybe I was imagining things, I thought. The next day, I went for a hike. I wanted to find wildlife. But while I was wandering, I stumbled upon some footprints. They looked unusually large, much too big for a deer. I crouched down to examine them. It felt wrong, and a chill crept down my spine. The prints were deep and wide with 3 distinct marks. I glanced around but saw nothing. My imagination was starting to run wild. Over the next few days, I set up my camera and tried to focus on photography. But I felt like I was being watched. I often caught movement out of the corner of my eye, yet when I turned, I saw nothing. My mind was playing tricks on me. I didn't want to feel scared, but I couldn't shake off the feeling. On my last day, I found something strange. It was a torn piece of bright red fabric on the forest floor. It looked old. My stomach twisted at the sight. I picked it up, feeling a sense of dread wash over me. Again, I glanced around. The feeling of being watched was stronger now, like something was just out of sight. As I started packing, the forest felt even quieter. Then I heard a voice. It was faint but clear. "Why are you here?" I froze, my breath catching in my throat. There was nobody around. I looked back at my tent, but it only stood there still. Anxiety hit me hard. My hands shook as I stuffed my gear into the bag. I heard the voice again, clearer this time. "Why are you here?" The words sent a wave of cold through me. I quickly turned around but saw nothing again. I felt a presence behind me. My heart raced as I realized I wasn't alone. I hurried to finish packing. Every rustle in the trees felt amplified. I wanted to run but forced myself to stay calm. I zipped my tent and took one last look at my surroundings. Then I heard it again. "Why are you here?" This time I bolted toward my car, my fear pushing me faster than I'd ever run. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me. Maybe I should never have come here. I jumped into my car, heart pounding hard enough to feel each beat pulse in my throat. The keys fumbled in my shaking hands as I tried to start the engine. This wasn't fear. It was pure terror. The voice echoed in my mind. I had to leave. I put the car in gear and peeled away from the clearing, gravel flying behind me. As I drove, the trees blurred past, their shadows casting strange shapes in the dim light of my headlights. Even now I felt eyes on me. Occasionally, I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something lurking behind me. It was ridiculous, I told myself, but deep down the feeling wouldn't budge. I decided to stop at a nearby gas station, needing to shake off the remnants of fear before heading home. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself. I got out of the car, the cool air striking against my skin, grounding me a bit. As I walked towards the entrance, I noticed something unusual. There was a group of hunters gathered at the far side of the station, their voices hushed and urgent. They looked like they were sharing a story, but as soon as I approached, they went silent. The atmosphere shifted, making me feel like an outsider. "Hey," I called, trying to sound casual despite the weight in my chest. "What's going on?" One of the hunters, tall and rugged, turned to me. "You out there in the woods alone?" he asked, disbelief and concern etched on his face. "Yeah," I admitted, still feeling the weight of their scrutiny. "Just for a few days." "Not smart, man, not smart at all. You seen anything weird? The question sent a chill down my spine. I hesitated. Should I share what I experienced? Just some odd prints, and I think I might have heard someone talking. The hunters exchanged glances. That wood's got a reputation, the tall one said, lowering his voice. People go missing out there without a trace. The mention of missing persons gripped me, but I tried to keep calm. I'm sure it's just my imagination. I'll be fine. Imagination don't explain the voices, buddy. We've heard 'em before. Sometimes they say a name. Like who? I asked, curiosity overcoming my hesitation. Depends. Seems like everyone's got their own story. He looked around the group. They nodded gravely, and I felt a wave of unease wash over me. Then, in the distance, I heard a faint call that sent a jolt of fear through me. Why are you here? It echoed just like before, but this time it felt closer. What the hell? I whispered. Suddenly the group shifted, their expressions a mixture of pity and concern. Their eyes darted towards the woods, the weight of whatever was happening hanging thick in the air. Time to go, man. You don't want to stick around here. I didn't need to be told twice. I backed away toward my car, the tension rising with every step. As I got in and locked the doors, I spotted something in the woods. Just a glimpse. A shadow moving quickly between the trees. I slammed the door shut and sped off, gripping the steering wheel as the highway opened wide before me. I had no idea what was lurking in those woods, but I was done finding out. I needed to get home. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Something deeper was calling me back. The drive home felt like an eternity. I focused on the road, the lines stretching into the darkness, trying to ignore the nagging pull of memories from the woods. My mind raced with unanswered questions. What were those prints? Who or what had been calling my name? When I finally reached the edge of town, I took a deep breath, desperate for normalcy. The streetlights flickered to life, illuminating the familiar sidewalks and shops. But even here, in the heart of civilization, I felt a sense of dread. There was a pressure in the air, like a storm brewing just out of sight. I pulled into my driveway, but before I could fully exhale, my phone buzzed aggressively in the passenger seat. I glanced at the screen and saw it was a message from my friend Jake. You okay? Heard about something creepy in the woods. Let's meet up. I paused. How much should I tell him? I decided to keep it light. I texted back. Just a bit freaked out. I'll be fine. Let's grab coffee tomorrow. I stepped out of the car, the cool breeze wrapping around me. The neighborhood was quiet. The only sound was the rustle of leaves. I moved quickly toward my door, feeling that same sense of being watched creeping back in. Inside, I locked the door and leaned against it, letting the silence settle. I glanced at the clock. It was late, and I needed to sleep. But the images from the woods played in my mind, a slideshow of fear I couldn't turn off. I poured myself a glass of water and tried to shake off the tension. My phone buzzed again. It was another message from Jake. Someone went missing last week near there. Just be careful. My hands tightened around the glass. I had to look it up. It couldn't hurt to know more about the disappearance. I grabbed my laptop and sat down at the kitchen table. With trembling fingers, I typed, "Missing Persons Cumberland Mountains" into the search bar. A shiver coursed down my spine as I scanned the results. There it was, a news article. A man named Mark Jensen, last seen hiking in the area I had explored. The story mentioned he had vanished without a trace, and those who searched claimed to hear distant voices calling out for him. The paragraph felt like a punch to the gut. I leaned closer to the screen as fear pricked at my gut like needles. The article ended, but not before noting that his last hike coincided with a full moon, when the locals believed the woods were at their most haunted. Then darkness flickered out of the corner of my eye. I turned quickly, heart racing. My front porch light had just blinked out. I thought it might be a power surge, but it had never done that before. That's when I saw it. A figure standing at the edge of my yard, partially obscured by shadows. I squinted, trying to make sense of the outline, my breath caught in my throat. It looked like a person, but something wasn't right. They seemed to be watching me. "Who's there?" I called, my voice shaky. No answer, just that intense silence. I felt a chill run through me, heavier than anything I had before. Whatever was happening, it was far from over. I grabbed my phone, ready to call Jake, but then noticed a movement in the darkness that made me freeze. Someone was in the yard. The figure didn't move. I took a cautious step back, my instincts screaming for me to run, but I was frozen in place. The air felt dense, thick with an unease that seemed to cling to my skin. I squinted harder, desperate to catch a glimpse of their face. "Hello?" I called again. Still nothing, just silence stretching out like a taut wire. I felt my heart thud against my ribcage, each beat a reminder that I was alone. Or was I? Just as I was about to retreat inside, the figure stirred. It took a slow step forward, revealing more of itself, and my stomach dropped. It was a woman, but her features were blurred by the shadows. She wore a long coat that hung loosely, and her hair flowed wild like tangled branches. I felt like I was staring at something out of a twisted fairy tale. "Are you lost?" My voice wavered, barely above a whisper. To my shock, she nodded. But in her eyes, I saw something else, something darker that sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't just confusion, it was fear. I don't know why, but I felt compelled to ask, "What are you doing here?" The woman hesitated, her gaze darting toward the woods behind my house. "They're coming." The words hung heavy in the air. "Who's coming?" I pressed, my heart racing between fear and curiosity. "Voices." Her voice cracked like dry leaves underfoot. "They call me like they called him." Mark Jensen. I thought of the article, the chilling way it mentioned the voices. I stepped forward, wanting to know more, but she recoiled slightly. "You shouldn't be here," she warned, her eyes wide now, glimmering with urgency. "Not during the full moon." Before I could ask what she meant, a low resonance echoed from the woods. It sounded like whispers, soft but insistent, calling her name. I glanced back, uncertainty washing over me. I had to get away from the open door, from the shadowy figure, from whatever was lurking outside. "You need to leave," I urged her, but she shook her head. "It's too late for me," she said, her voice a wisp on the wind. "But you have to listen." The whispers grew louder, and I felt my skin crawl. Panic bubbled within me, the urge to flee overwhelming. I turned to run inside when she suddenly reached out and grabbed my arm. "They'll take you too. You can't follow." Before she could finish, the porch light flared back to life, blinding us both for a moment. When my vision cleared, she was gone, vanished into thinner air as if she was never there. I stood, stunned by the abruptness of it all. I breathed heavily, trying to wrap my mind around what had just happened. The whispers faded into the background, but dread settled heavily on my chest. Maybe I should have gone inside, locked the door, and tried to forget what I had just seen. But now, all I could think about was pursuing the truth. Whatever was happening in those woods was connected to Mark and to this woman. I needed answers. Just as I turned back to grab my phone, a faint whisper floated through the air. "Come find me." It sent an icy shiver down my spine. I hesitated, staring into the darkness where she had stood, the pull of the unknown growing stronger. Could I really ignore it? I hadn't wanted to feel this way, but something told me I had to go back to the woods. It wasn't until later that night when I finally mustered the courage to step outside again. The moon hung full and bright in the sky, casting everything in a ghostly light. The woods loomed ahead, thick and dark, their whispering secrets beckoning me closer. With each tentative step, dread wrapped tighter around my heart. I moved slowly, the crunch of twigs and leaves underfoot seeming loud in the stillness. I tried to recall what the woman had said, but the specifics were slipping away from me like water through my fingers. Just in time, the whispers returned, more defined this time, swirling in the breeze. "Come find me." I paused, wishing I could ignore that pull, but it was impossible. I wanted to know who she was and what the voices were. I needed to understand why this was happening. So I pressed deeper into the woods, my flashlight cutting through the shadows. As I neared a clearing, the whispers intensified. I felt like I was surrounded, engulfed. Suddenly, I saw movement in the corner of my vision, I swung my flashlight toward it, heart racing, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. It was a tree stump, but not just any stump. It was covered in strange carvings, twisting figures, and words I couldn't decipher. My breath caught. Something told me to look closer. As I approached, the air around me felt charged, as if the very ground was alive, pulsing with energy. Then I heard it. A soft, anguished cry echoed through the trees. It was distant but close enough that I couldn't ignore it. My heart raced as I realized it was a woman's voice, desperate and pleading. "Help. Me." I recoiled, a chill running down my spine. "Who's there?" My voice broke through the quiet, but only silence answered. I took a cautious step back, considering turning around when a flash of movement caught my eye again. Just ahead, I spotted a figure, a shadow huddled against a tree, partially illuminated by the moonlight. Anxiety surged through me as I approached, compelled against all better judgment. "Are you okay?" I called, the words feeling inadequate. The figure stirred but didn't respond. It was then that I noticed the woman's long coat, the tangled hair that mirrored the one from before. A knot of confusion twisted in my stomach. "It's you," I exclaimed, but something felt off. She raised her head slowly, revealing a face that was both familiar and yet somehow wrong. Her eyes were sunken, half wild, and filled with an expression of relentless fear. "You shouldn't have come," she rasped, voice trembling. Before I could ask why, she pointed with shaking fingers toward the woods. "They're watching." I tried to peer into the shadows, but it was impossible to see anything. Who is watching? Her response was cut off by that sound again, the chorus of whispers, louder this time, rising and falling like some eerie tide. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to go back home. But I stood paralyzed. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement, something darting between the trees. It was fast, too fast for me to catch a proper glimpse. My skin prickled as I sensed more than one pair of eyes on me, waiting. "Run!" Her voice pierced the delirium of the whispers as she surged past me into the darkness. "You have to get out now!" Without even thinking, I followed, adrenaline pulsing through my veins. But the woods seemed to conspire against us, branches snapping behind me, whispers rising into frantic cries. I bounded after her, not knowing if I would ever reach her, or if I was running toward even greater peril. In that moment, all I could focus on was escaping the shadows looming on my heels. The darkness wrapped around me like a thick blanket as I sprinted after her. Each step felt heavy, the ground almost pulling me down. I could hear the woman's footsteps ahead, chaotic and frantic. My breath came in sharp bursts, mixing with the low, persistent whispers that seemed to rise from the very earth beneath me. "Wait," I shouted, but she didn't look back. My voice was swallowed by the night, consumed by the sound of rustling branches. I forced myself to keep going, pushing through the dense underbrush, each branch I brushed against leaving scratches on my arms. Suddenly the whispers shifted, and I felt a notable change in the air. They turned darker, colder. I stumbled over a root, nearly falling as I regained my footing. Glancing up, I caught sight of her silhouette, barely visible in the moonlight. She was ahead, but now she was standing completely still. "Stop!" I yelled, panic coursing through my veins. "Why are you—" Then I saw it. A figure stepped out from the trees behind her. Shadows shifted, blending into the bark as if they had pulled themselves from the night itself. My heart raced as I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The figure was tall, impossibly slender. It moved with an unnatural grace, gliding rather than walking. My instincts screamed at me to turn and run, but I was rooted to the spot. The woman still hadn't reacted, as if she couldn't see the horror within arm's reach. "Run!" I tried once more, but there was something in the air that held my voice in place. A low hum vibrated around us, weaving through the trees, echoing against my bones. It felt like a warning, but I was paralyzed. Just as the figure reached out, its long fingers brushing against the woman's shoulder, she finally snapped back to reality. The moment her gaze locked onto the figure, all semblance of calm fled her. "Go!" she screamed, shoving past it and darting towards me. The figure swayed, but it didn't chase after her. Instead, it seemed to melt into the shadows, disappearing as the woman dashed towards me. In a heartbeat, I was grasping her arm, yanking her closer. "Did you see that?" I gasped, trying to catch my breath. She nodded, her face pale and wild. "Keep running, they'll only grow bolder." The desperation in her voice lit a new fire within me, and I turned without hesitation. We plunged deeper into the woods, the whispers rising to a near-deafening crescendo. I felt the presence of unseen eyes, but I pushed forward. "Why are they doing this?" I shouted, weaving around a thick trunk. "Why are we being hunted?" Negative answers swirled in my mind, but she didn't respond. Instead, she kept running until suddenly, she halted near a tree that looked decades old, its trunk gnarled and wide. "That way," she pointed to a narrow break between the roots. "It's a shelter." A quick look over my shoulder revealed nothing but looming darkness. I knew we had to act fast. Without question, we scrambled into the opening, the earth closing around us as we pressed ourselves into the hollow. The whispers faded to a tense silence, but I could still feel the weight of the woods above us. The pressure was almost suffocating. Glancing at the woman beside me, I caught her breath hitching, equal parts terror and exhaustion. "Do you know what they are?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. She shook her head, eyes wide. "They don't leave witnesses." Just then, something scraped against the bark of the tree above, a sound so close it sent chills racing down my spine. I held my breath, the dread creeping back in. Just as quickly as it had come, everything went quiet again. But this time, my heart raced for a different reason. I had a sinking feeling we weren't alone in our little sanctuary. And whatever, or whoever, was there might be even more dangerous than what we had just escaped. The silence felt alive, pressing down on us in the dim light. I strained to hear anything, hoping for a sign that we were truly alone. But all I could hear was our breath and the distant rustling of leaves. Then, from the shadows, soft footfalls approached. I tensed, unable to discern whether they were friend or foe. The woman beside me looked at me with wide eyes, and I knew she felt it too, the air thick with anticipation. "Stay quiet," I whispered, though I had no idea if it would make a difference. The sounds grew louder, closer. I could make out shapes in the near darkness, shifting figures lurking just beyond our hiding spot. I dared to peek around the meager shelter. My heart sank as I saw glinting eyes, countless pairs peering from the surrounding trees. Shadows twisted among the branches, impossibly elongated in the moonlight. "They're watching us," I breathed, feeling the panic bubble up again. The woman nodded. "We can't stay here. If they sense we're trapped—" A rustling interrupted her words. I turned back, and from the same darkness, a small creature emerged. No taller than my knee, it had an angular face, its body covered with patches of matted fur. It had long fingers, distorted and claw-like, and it moved with bizarre, jerky motions. The air shimmered around it, pulling at the shadows. I blinked, unable to process what I was seeing. "What is that?" The woman gripped my arm tighter. "I don't know, but it doesn't belong here." Before I could respond, the creature squeaked, an eerie, high-pitched sound that echoed into the forest. It froze and stared right at us, its eyes luminous and filled with an intelligence that sent shivers racing through me. It stepped forward, extending one of its long fingers towards us. I flinched back instinctively, my heart pounding in my chest. "Wait," the woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's different." The creature tilted its head, observing us with an unsettling curiosity. It seemed to measure our fear, the sharpness of our breaths. Then, without warning, it lunged. Panic surged in me. I scrambled backward, deeper into the hollow, dragging the woman with me. "Run!" I shouted, but it didn't matter. The darkness tightened around us, and that feeling of being trapped returned with a vengeance. Just as the creature reached us, it stopped short. An unseen force rippled through the air just beyond the tree's roots. It recoiled, its form stretching and warping as if it had collided with something invisible. A second later, it darted back into the shadows, its squeaks replaced by the whispers that had haunted us since we started running. "What just happened?" I gasped, my voice trembling. I think it was scared, she breathed, her eyes darting to the spot where it had vanished. But it's a warning. The forest itself doesn't want us here. I shuddered, a sense of dread coiling tightly in my gut. We had to keep moving, but where? The fear of the unknown gripped us both, and yet hidden dangers lurked just outside our sanctuary. That's when I saw it. The faint glow of eyes exactly where the creatures had appeared, closer than before. They were gathering. More than one. "Did you see that?" I said, barely keeping my voice steady. She nodded frantically. "We need to leave. Now." But as we turned to find an exit, everything went dark. When the darkness swallowed us, panic surged like icy water. I felt a rush of uncertainty. My heart raced in my ears, drowning out everything else. I reached out blindly in front of me, hoping to find the woman still at my side, but the air felt empty. "Can you see anything?" I whispered, straining my eyes against the black. "Nothing. It's like the world just vanished," she replied, her voice quaking. I took a step forward, my foot finding ground that seemed steadier than my mind. I wasn't sure if I was moving in the right direction or fumbling into deeper shadows. I tried to calm my breath, but every sound I heard made me jump. I could feel the forest stirring around us like a living thing watching and waiting. Then, like a spark in the night, a flicker of light appeared. It was small, a faint glow that pulsed in the distance, barely illuminating the twisted trees ahead. Without thinking, I grabbed the woman's hand, pulling her toward it. "Let's go. Over there." We stumbled forward, the glow shifting and wavering as we approached. The whispers resumed. The low murmur swelled again, this time sounding more like a chant. I stopped short, the realization scraping against my skin. It felt like we'd stumbled into something ancient, something far beyond our understanding. As we neared the source of the light, I saw what it was. A circle of stones arranged intricately, glimmering with the light that escaped from within. The glow seemed alive, pulsating rhythmically, casting shadows that danced wildly. "What is this place?" she breathed, pulling me back slightly as if the stones themselves were dangerous. "I don't know, but it feels important," I said, my fascination battling with fear. Suddenly, from behind the stones, a silhouette emerged. It was tall, much taller than either of us, cloaked in darkness and wrapped in what appeared to be tattered fabric. The figure stepped into the light and my throat tightened. It had a face unlike anything I had ever seen, delicate yet menacing, with elongated features that seemed to melt into the shadows. "Welcome," it said, its voice echoing as if coming from everywhere at once. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my attempt to sound steady. "I am a guardian of this realm," it said, moving closer. "You have entered forbidden grounds." "What do you want from us?" The woman's voice was sharp. The figure tilted its head, eyes narrowing as it studied us. "You seek answers, yet you possess none of the wisdom required to survive here." With every word, the surrounding air thickened, pressing in on us. I felt trapped once more, the weight of the encounter dragging me down. The whispers grew louder, filling my head like static. "No, we don't want any trouble," I said quickly, unwilling to provoke anything further. "Then you must leave," it said, unwavering. "You do not belong." But as it spoke, I felt a shift in the air. The warmth of the light wavered and shadows began to encroach. I could hear movements behind us, the rustling of creatures gathering, closing in. "We need to go," the woman urged, tugging at my arm. Just as I turned to escape, I heard a voice louder than the rest, cutting through the murmurs. "Not yet. They must see." I froze, the chilling realization creeping over me. The forest was not done with us. There was more to uncover, and something was about to reveal itself. My heart pounded as the voice echoed in my mind. Must see what? I thought. Panic rose within me, but curiosity fought just as fiercely. Shivers raced down my spine. I wanted to look back. I wanted to run. But what hung in the air more than a shadow was the need for answers. The guardian stepped closer, its gaze fixated on me. "You wish to know?" It was not a question. It felt like an invitation wrapped in warning. "What do you mean?" I managed to choke out. The stones hold the truth. It gestured toward the glowing circle. But truth comes at a price. I glanced at the woman beside me. Her eyes were wide, and fear had gripped her features. I could sense her hesitation. "We don't have to do this," she whispered, her grip tightening on my hand. But what if that was all we needed? The answers we never knew we were searching for. "I have to know," I whispered back almost to myself. Without another word, I took a step forward, drawn toward the light like a moth to a flame. Each step felt heavier yet somehow liberating. The stone circle thrummed beneath my feet. I could hear the pulse now, a steady beat that synchronized with my own racing heart. Suddenly the soft glow brightened, illuminating strange symbols carved into the stones. They seemed to swirl and dance as I moved closer, shifting with the light. I reached out to touch one, feeling a heat radiate from it. The moment my fingers made contact, a vision flooded my mind. A cascade of images, snippets of another time. A village engulfed in flames. A woman with knowing eyes who looked directly at me. "Do not forget," she whispered, her voice echoing through my thoughts. I jerked my hand back, stunned. A rush of questions battered my mind. The guardian's voice interrupted my turmoil. "You have glimpsed what was and what can be. But you must choose." "What do you mean?" I managed, trying to break free from the grip of the vision. "Choose wisely, for your fate interweaves with this realm." I felt a deep shudder then, an electricity running through the ground. It pushed against me, urging me to choose, to act. What if I refuse? Refusal is a choice in itself. But know this, the forest is alive. It remembers, it demands. My chest tightened. I looked back at the woman. Her expression mirrored my own confusion and fear. "What do we do?" "Make your choice," the guardian commanded, stepping back as shadows swirled around us. That's when I saw it, a dark shape shifting in the periphery of the glowing light. It was monstrous, its form rippling as it approached, breaking the protective boundary the stones had created. "Run!" I shouted. But the whispers rose to an unbearable crescendo, drowning out my voice. Shadows sprang from the trees, twisting and writhing, enveloping us. I pulled the woman close, but the guardian stood, watching, waiting for our decision to unravel. I made a choice then. I felt it surge within me like a flood. We face this together. The ground shook and I braced for the shadow's embrace, but the forest was already alive and ready for the truth to be revealed. The air crackled with tension as the shadows loomed closer, the night heavy with a foreboding intensity. My heart raced, thundering in my ears as I found myself locked in a battle of wills against the encroaching darkness. The guardian stepped back further, leaving us as the focal point of this mysterious conflict. "Together," I repeated, both a promise and a rallying cry, feeling the woman's grip tighten around my arm. It was as if we had forged a bond in that moment, an unspoken agreement that we would face whatever may come, united against the unknown. The whispers crescendoed, weaving an ethereal song that flitted around us, wrapping in and out of reality. I took a deep breath and prepared myself for what lay ahead. "I won't let them take us," I yelled into the abyss, though my voice felt insignificant against the cacophony. Suddenly the darkness surged forward, a mass of swirling shadows that seemed almost alive, tendrils slithering as they reached for us. Every instinct screamed to run, to flee from this suffocating threat, but we stood our ground, just as the guardian had urged. I felt the protective energy surrounding the stones fade, replaced by an oppressive weight that threatened to crush us. Just as the nearest tendril brushed against my skin, an inexplicable force surged within me, uncoiling like a spring, pulsing through the ground and into the heart of the looming threat. "Tell them to stop," I shouted, my voice reverberating against the trees. The whispers faltered, caught off guard by the sheer force of my declaration. "What do you want?" I pressed, feeling a shift in the air around us, the shadows recoiling slightly. A deep voice emerged from the darkness, layered with anguish and anger. "You tread where you do not belong." "Neither do you," I countered, desperate to expose the truth behind the fear gripping us. "You haunt the innocent." "Let her go." The swirling mass slowed. a sliver of hesitation slicing through the sooty forms. I felt a jolt from the woman beside me. It was as if she had drawn strength from my resolve, a ripple of understanding passing between us. The guardian spoke then, its voice calm yet commanding. You are visitors in this sacred realm, yet what you seek holds power. Face it. In that moment clarity washed over me. We are different from you, I shouted once more, addressing the shadows. We're not here to take, we seek to understand. Let us go and we will speak of peace. The shadows paused again, and I thought I saw the forms within shift, as if the collective consciousness of the forest was considering my words. With a deep breath I added, if you take one of us, you will only sow fear. We are not your enemies. I felt the woman's hand squeeze mine and she echoed my sentiment, her voice shaky but resolute. We don't want to fight. The darkness in you, it can change. You have the power to leave the past behind. The silence stretched, filled with an intensity that was almost unbearable. Then, slowly, the figures retracted, settling further away, as if seeking distance from our boldness. The whispers dimmed, retreating into an uncertain murmur, reflecting the indecision thick in the air. The guardian stepped forward then, silhouetted against the soft glow of the stones. Their course is set. But what do you choose? I faltered, glancing at the woman beside me. We had just faced our fears, but the cost of truth weighed heavily. What if our choice didn't lead to a safe way out, but to something buried far beneath the surface? Tremors of uncertainty coursed through me as I looked at the shadows. I understood then that to move forward, we had to break the cycle of fear that had plagued this forest for so long. I choose. The words hovered at the edge of my consciousness. I choose understanding. In that moment, the glow of the stones brightened, illuminating the surrounding darkness. The shadows faded away like smoke in the wind, and for the first time, sunlight broke through the canopy above us. It was as if a barrier had dissolved, and light filtered back into this hushed space. The whispers transformed, shifting into sounds of nature reclaiming its own. Birds sang, and the wind rustled gently through the leaves. The guardian's presence atop the stones dissipated, leaving a sense of calm enveloping the clearing. But as I turned to the woman beside me, an unmistakable emptiness lingered in my chest. What happens now? I asked, the resolve in me wavering. She nodded toward the woods where ancient trees still stood tall, heavy with secrets. I don't know, but this... She gestured between us. This is only one chapter. As we stepped out from the circle of stones, I could sense the history of the woods shifting beneath our feet. It was there, wrapped in the air around us, an ache and a call. I wasn't sure if the threat was truly gone, or if it merely regrouped to bide its time. With a final glance at the trees, I felt an unsettling realization settle in. Forests were alive, and their narratives went beyond our understanding. I took a deep breath, knowing that no matter how far I ventured from that night, I would never shake the feeling of being watched. Together we walked away, the path ahead uncertain, filled with questions waiting for an answer. I could only hope the choice for understanding would guide us through the shadows that still lay ahead.